Let's try that again. Good morning, everyone. Good to see you, Carol. Yes, obviously I am not John Mann. John asked me to introduce our speakers for today because John and Kiris Marie are over in front of the Hotel Lakeside helping install the mobile Vietnam Wall, which will be here through the weekend. And I hope that you have an opportunity to go by there and take advantage of seeing that. So I am Kimberly Orr, the Director of Religious Life, and this week for the Chautauqua Lecture Series is America's Outposts, where we look at where Americans have been in the world and what discoveries have been made in space. For this morning, we're fortunate to have Bill Kiefer and Ron Distel as our speakers. Bill's talk will cover his time in Somalia, and Ron will cover his time in Vietnam. Bill's career includes nearly 12 years as a U.S. Army officer, 20 years as an HR executive in a large, complex global companies, and 8 years as an entrepreneur. Today, he serves as the executive director of Veteran Career Journey, a nonprofit that he co-founded to help veterans succeed through career transitions. He also founded and owns a for-profit consulting firm doing similar work. Ron is a 6-year Air Force veteran as an aircraft loading specialist from 1970 to 1976. In the Vietnam War, he was awarded the Air Force Commendation Medal for expert and meritorious service. Ron was commander of the American Legion post in Elmore, Ohio for many years and has been an Ottawa County Veteran Services Commissioner for the past 17 years. Please take a moment to silence your phones and to join me in welcoming Bill and Ron to Orchestra Hall and Lakeside.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I serve with Ron as a Veteran Service Commissioner for Ottawa County, but I'm the newbie. I've only been doing it for a couple of years. Are we getting feedback? We okay? All right, very good. So this is the first time I've ever done a talk about my time in Somalia. It was an experience that I hope nobody ever has to go through. So when did it all start? December of 1992. I was a 29-year-old Army captain. Yes, that is me. I haven't aged all that gracefully. I was in command of about a 100-soldier unit supporting about a 3,000-soldier brigade task force. We were stationed up at Fort Drum, New York. Any veterans in the crowd? Yeah? Yeah, well, thank you for your service. Let's see, I gotta figure out how to run the clicker. In December of 92, our unit had just returned from doing support for Hurricane Andrew that had gone through Miami, South-Dade. So we were a little bit worn out from that. We were refitting and thinking that maybe we'd have some nice holidays ahead of us. When I was in Miami-Dade for Hurricane Andrew, I thought I had seen the worst destruction possible on Earth, and I thought I had seen the very best and the very worst of humanity. What I noticed in Hurricane Andrew was that there were many folks that stood up to help right away, and there's others that took advantage of the weak. Not a good thing. So we're getting back, we're getting refitted, we're getting ourselves reoriented to family life and trying to get ourselves ready for the holidays, and then we got the alert that we were deploying to Somalia. Quite frankly, I didn't expect it. For the next few days and weeks, we worked 24 hours a day planning and preparing for what ultimately wound up being one of the most dangerous, misunderstood places on Earth. I didn't know where Somalia was when they said that's where we were going. I didn't have a clue. I looked it up, I go, wow, that's way on the wrong side of Africa. Holy smokes, that's a long ways out there. But we went. A little background on Somalia. Okay, it's about 7,000 miles from home. It's about 637,000 square kilometers, about 15, 16 million people. The capital is Mogadishu. There had been an ongoing, ever-worsening civil war. It's a clan-based society there, and the clans were warring. There was widespread famine, and there was death in the country on the scale of genocide. It was a horrible place. The world had tried to help before. The United Nations had been on the ground for about a year in an operation they called UNISOM 1, but they were unable to turn the tide and improve the situation on the ground. So, UNITAF, a Unified Task Force, Operation Restore Hope, was created. It was sanctioned and deployed on the 5th of December, 1992. The mission was to create a secure environment for humanitarian operations by all means necessary. That last little bit turned out to be kind of scary. While it was U.S.-led, it was UN-sanctioned. The United Nations sanctioned it, okay? Included about 37,000 troops from dozens of different countries, about 27,000 of which were from the U.S. I worked directly with folks from Botswana, Turkey, Pakistan, and Morocco. I want to tell a little story about Morocco. All of these services have different characters, and if you've worked with allied nations military, you'll notice they're very different. Some are highly capable in some areas, and others not so much. Some are well-trained, some are well-equipped, and others not so much. The Turks were tough, and they were young. The Pakistanis, not so much. The Botswanans, even less so much, in my opinion. But in any case, the folks from Morocco were very professional. And I became very good friends with their battalion commander and their command sergeant major. And one of the lessons I learned early on is that sometimes our direct get-down-to-business American way of doing things doesn't necessarily work. We were in an area called Baladogel, and I'll tell the story about that, how we got there in a minute. It's an old Russian airfield. We were there, and the Moroccans were coming in to supplement our force. I was the senior guy on the ground at the time. The battalion commander came in, and he goes, "Hey, I need to talk to some guy named Kiefer." I said, "Great, Colonel, I'm glad you're here. Let's get down to business." He goes, "No, first we eat." That didn't break my heart, because I'd been eating MREs for quite a while at that point. They brought in real food, and we spent a half a day breaking bread and getting to know each other. We developed a very good professional relationship and, quite frankly, a very good personal relationship. And within a matter of weeks, he and the sergeant major were both dead, killed in the streets of Mogadishu. Very tough lesson for a pretty young guy to deal with. While this was on its face a humanitarian mission, those words, by all means necessary, became real. Pretty quickly, the mission shifted. While we did help with the famine, our shift to peacemaking and peacekeeping occurred. There was a lot of conflict between various clans, and it truly is a clan-based society, several of which are named there, and the graphic shows where they operated throughout the country. We have our different societies and different sections of our population and this and that. Nowhere have I ever experienced in America, or quite frankly any other country, the absolute vile disregard for life that you saw between these clans, okay? If I'm a member of the SNA and somebody from the USC comes up, I'd just soon kill them to say hi. It's that bad. As I mentioned, my journey started in Fort Drum, New York. Honestly, I don't remember where we stopped over in Europe, probably Frankfurt, and then we flew into Mogadishu. Mogadishu was chaos. On arrival, we occupied a bombed-out hulk of an airport building. And from the minute we arrived until the minute we left Mogadishu, we were shelled and mortared and caught sniper fire constantly. It wasn't grand-scale warfare like you'd see in the movies. It wasn't the big dramatic stuff you maybe saw in Desert Storm. It wasn't tank warfare. This was dirty urban fighting that took a toll that was unimaginable. We stayed in Mogadishu for a few days, and from there we went out about 70 kilometers to the east-northeast to a little town called Baladogle. I don't know if there's a pointer there, but Baladogle. And from there, I had small teams of troops out supporting infantry units throughout the southern half of Somalia. Places like Baidoa, Bardira, Jalib, Kismayu, America, Mogadishu, Wanlawayn, Beledweyne. I've been in all those locations. I'm probably not going to take the entire time. This is moving faster than I thought it was. One of the things they asked me to speak about are some of the takeaways from my time there. So I'll share these. First, the horrors mankind is willing to inflict is unimaginable. Absolutely unimaginable. I won't bore you with details, and quite frankly, I don't want to subject myself to telling the stories in detail. Nobody in Western society that I've ever met would ever believe human beings are capable of what they saw. I saw that societies can devolve to a point where human life is less valuable than everything else. Think about that. I want the food, I'll just kill somebody and take it. That's how it operated. And when you're doing a humanitarian relief mission, where you've got the bags of grain, the bags of food from, the relief agencies, people were literally killing, stabbing, shooting each other just to get a bag of food. It was that desperate. To that point, strict and unrealistic rules of engagement put soldiers in harm's way. Imagine that you're there on a humanitarian relief mission to secure the environment by any means necessary. You're seeing the behaviors I just described. You're armed, and you can't do a thing because nobody's shooting at you. It messes with your head a little bit. It's a little bit dangerous. Imagine going in an open Humvee. We were not armored up. The Humvees with just open doors, or maybe canvas, because that'll stop things. Driving through the streets of Mogadishu with thousands of people that don't want you there. And you're driving through, and the people are this close. They're right here. They're shooting over your head. They're shooting at your tires. And I learned that getting stoned has a whole different meaning in Somalia than it does here. We were literally getting rocks thrown at us. They hurt. It's not fun. We learned that Kevlar is an important thing. Okay? Next, multinational forces can be successful if there's one strong nation in charge. After Operation Restore Hope evolved, they brought in UNISOM II, which was UN-led, that one country leadership changed. Black Hawk Down, seen the movie? I know some of those guys. I was out of the country when that happened. The UN had taken over before that happened. And what wound up happening was that the US-led final decision-making was kind of deferred to the UN. And that clarity of command, that ability to go, this is the final decision, got watered down. Good things slowed down and increasingly bad things happened. You kind of have to have a big dog in the house, whoever that is. Somebody's got to be mom and somebody's got to be dad. Okay? Peacekeeping is inherently not peaceful. I've had a number of folks over the years go, it was a food mission, it was peacekeeping. I got way too much evidence to the contrary. This was not peaceful. It didn't get the press. There wasn't a lot of talk. And quite frankly, in my opinion, but for Black Hawk Down, I don't think most people would know much about Somalia at all. Interesting side note, the work I do works with mostly special operators. from Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps. And some of the classes that I've taught, I've had folks that have been in the locations that I was in, Balladogle specifically, 30-some years later. We're still there. We're still trying to stabilize a country that, quite frankly, doesn't seem to want to be stabilized. It is not. Peacekeeping is not inherently peaceful. Next, intent and speeches are not enough. Nations and their armed forces must be capable, they must be enabled, and they must be ready to fight a war, even if you're going to call it peacekeeping. Okay? Next, the media rarely gets it right. I don't remember the little ville we were in, but we were going in to secure some things because we knew a food convoy was coming in. And Reuters, the news agency Reuters, they decided that they wanted to come along. They sent a cameraman and somebody, I don't know, a reporter, I guess, I don't know. And I fought it. Chain of command said, stop fighting, they're coming with you. Okay, don't impede their work. And I said, I'll do my best as long as they don't impede mine. They did. I broke their camera. Nobody caught me. Apparently they fell. Okay? The news media, my opinion, there are great members of what's at the Fourth Estate, but not everybody gets it right. The other lesson learned, quite frankly, for me has grown over the years and decades since I've been back. Most people don't know what happened over there. And from my experience, most don't care. It's too small, too distant, too foreign, too hard to try. There's other bigger name conflicts that got people's attention. For many, Somalia is maybe just an asterisk in the chronicles of history. And the other one, the last one up there, is really, really hard for me to talk about, but I'm gonna. Because at 29, we were doing hard things and going, I got it, I'm invincible. And then I turned 30, and 40, and 50, and 60, and a couple of more. The physical effects have been hard. I won't bore you with the long list. But the mental and emotional effects are really hard. Really hard. And I'm thankful every day for the good folks like at our county veteran service offices, the VA, and the rest of the community that's out there supporting our military veterans, whether they're from a conflict small as mine or a better known, larger scale one that's out there. We absolutely have to do what we can to pay attention and remember and support our military veterans from whatever they suffer. That's all I got. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I probably didn't use nearly enough time, but I'm still in contact with a number of my colleagues from Operation Restore Hope. A fellow company commander of mine, colleague of mine, lives in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia right now. He is, I don't know, several years older than I am, and quite frankly has had a really, really hard time, okay? And one thing we all agree on, regardless of the details of our background, is that even though we're no longer in Somalia, it's always going to be with us. First time I've talked about this, and I appreciate the opportunity to do so. So thank you all.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Before we hear from you, I'd like to go ahead and do questions around him because some
Sure.
folks may have some right now. Any questions, comments? Yes.
Sir.
Well, first, thank you for your service. But secondly, you mentioned rules of engagement were not always helpful. I'd like you to talk about that. And then your last comment about the continued support for veterans. What else should the country be doing for veterans it's not doing now?
No, I appreciate those. So rules of engagement are the rules by which you can conduct yourself. There are common sets of rules, Geneva Convention and such. And then chains of command always set a rules of engagement for a particular situation. In our case, because it was a humanitarian mission, the rules of engagement, at least early on, were don't shoot unless you knew you personally are being shot at. Well, okay, stones hurt and kill people. How close is close enough? I don't know how many times I was running convoys in and out of Mogadishu, and it literally this close. And there's people firing at each other in the air, all around. Who's shooting at who? And the way that they communicated the rules of engagement was pretty threatening. You screw this up, you're going to jail. I got over 100 people. I got to be very careful what I'm doing. Relative to the second part of your question, what can we do more for veterans? I think there's good effort, too bureaucratic. At a state level, there's good effort. Could probably be cleaned up a little bit from a bureaucracy standpoint. From the county level, I think we do an outstanding job, not just because I'm a commissioner, of helping get past the bureaucracy, okay, maybe a little bit, get past the bureaucracy to deal with those veterans one-on-one, because everybody's experience is different. What Ron experienced as a Vietnam Air Force guy is very different than what I experienced, but we each have needs that need to be addressed. Whether it's mental health, physical health, medical care, access to finance, whatever it is. And I'll suggest that big programs, while important, can't be a good substitute for that one-on-one, how you doing, brother, how can I help? So, yeah, but great questions, thank you.
Thank you. Others?
What do you see as the future of the Veterans like the Veterans of Foreign Wars, American, and those kind of organizations? Because having just been to the memorial celebration or observance in Marblehead, they're getting older. Some of them are very old, and I don't see the younger ranks. So can you comment about that?
Yeah, glad to. That's great. If you didn't hear the question, what is my opinion on the future of veteran service organizations like the chartered ones, the Legion, VFW, AMVETS, and so forth? I think to answer that question, it's important to understand what percent of our population ever served in uniform. 93% of our population never served in uniform. Enlistment rates today, less than 1% of the population joins the military in any capacity. Now, you compare that to the populations that were drafted when there was a higher enlistment rate, a military sign-up rate, the pool is getting smaller to begin with, okay? And I don't think there's enough people to keep, without some real dedicated effort, to keep the population steady in those veteran service organizations. That said, I think the younger generation has a little bit different view of being joiners. Okay? They don't necessarily want to join things, so I think there's a couple of headwinds. Can the organization sustain themselves? Yes, but it's going to take some diligent effort. I'm a life member of the VFW. I'm a 25-year member of the Elmore Legion, and I love them both, but like generations evolve, the organizations have to evolve too. Perhaps, and no disregard to any of the locations that do this, but perhaps rather than sitting around drinking beer and playing pull tabs, have a family day. Invite the community, invite the kids. Shift a little bit about what and how. So it's something perhaps a little more attractive to the younger veteran. 3 of my 5 kids wore the uniform. 2 of them still do. My youngest one's 25. He's a military policeman in Korea. He got out after his first gig. He won't join anything. He marches in our parade, but he won't join anything. He's busy. They're having kids. He's working, trying to pay for the house. He don't want to join anything. My oldest son is 15 years Navy with 7 combat deployments. He's an aviation maintenance officer. He's not joining anything. He's a little busy. And then my next oldest son is an Army chaplain. most recently with a Special Forces battalion out in Joint Base Lewis McChord. He's not joining anything either. He's got 3 kids. The draw for the community, the draw for that sense of fellowship is different with this generation. And if organizations don't find a way to engage on a level that works for those younger veterans, it's going to be hard to maintain and grow. But great question. Thank you, ma'am.
Yep.
Was there ever a time when you were stationed in Somalia that you questioned the mission?
Yeah. I would say it's not so much questioning the mission. The mission was to provide initially was to provide a secure environment for the distribution of food to stop the genocide. Hard to question that. I seriously questioned how it was being executed. I think we constrained ourselves far too much. But, you know, I was a pretty junior guy. You know, I wasn't doing policy stuff. I was concerned about how it evolved, you know, mission creep, scope creep, a little bit concerned about how it was creeping. And I'm just not at all happy with the way it ended. I mean, we pulled people out abruptly, and it left a mess that, as I commented, 30, 40 years later, we still have people on the ground. A good friend of mine, who now is a contractor for a defense firm, he was a Green Beret colonel, 31 years of service in the Special Forces. He has spent now, with his time out, the last 5 years in Somalia, trying to work either as a special operations officer or now as a contractor to help stabilize the nation. It's inherently unstable. So I don't know if I got where you needed. Yeah? No? Okay.
We have time for one more question.
Hi, this is not a question, but a comment. Thank you both for sharing. Well, you've shared already, you're going to share. You guys are my heroes. I have a son who was in the Army National Guard for 8 years. Now he's working as a federal agent with the post office. Being a mother, you realize your child is laying down their life like a blank check to the country, and both of you have done that. So I just want to thank you very much, let you know that you're my heroes, and I pray for the military every single day.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for sharing your story. I know it was hard.
Yep.
So God bless you. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you all.
Bill?
Good job. Good morning, everyone. Boy, this thing's loud. First, I want to take this moment to thank my wife for traveling with me. I've been working with veterans for over 35 years. It's all been volunteer. And I've been in almost every little village in Ohio and a lot of places in the United States, and she's traveled everywhere with me. That's a real trooper. Vietnam is not the forgotten war. That's Korea. But Vietnam is the war everyone wants to forget. I've got a few things I'm going to tell you about. The president at the time when the first troops went to Vietnam, everyone thinks was JFK. It was Lyndon Johnson. President Kennedy simply sent advisors. Just a few stats here. The Ho Chi Minh Trail was used to transport troops and supplies for the North Vietnamese from the north to the south. It was not a combat strip or anything. In 1968, the Tet Offensive of Quezon turned the opinion of the American people against that war. And that's when all the hoopla started with all the protests and this and that. And Saigon fell in 1975. I bet everybody thought it was a lot sooner than that, but it was 1975. It was on April 30th. And that was the essence of the end of the Vietnam War. That's when the U.S. was pulling out rapidly. I want to ask this one question. Does anyone know what day Vietnam Veterans Day is? It is March 29th, every year. I'll be speaking about a young person's life while on tour in the Republic of Vietnam. The conflict existed from 1959 to 1975, during which period many mothers, fathers, sisters, and brothers lost a loved one. And a nation lost 58,479 dedicated, energetic soldiers, Marines, sailors, airmen, and Coast Guard military personnel. In addition to America's losses, the North and South Vietnamese lost 3.8 million who perished in that war. This is serious attrition to someone who wants to run a country. I'm going to ask that y'all be patient with me today because I'm not during this presentation, because I'm not an educator and I'm not a real positive speaker of any kind. Hell, I didn't even graduate high school until I returned from the war. I've got a story for that. I was going to work one day. I went back from the war. I was stationed up in Sault Ste. Marie at a SAC base, and I was loading B-52s. And I went to work one day, and my boss turned to me and he says, "The base commander wants you in his office at 10 o'clock. You go see the base commander, you're in trouble." So I didn't know what I did. So I went there and reported in and all that. I was just a sergeant, just a little guy. And he looked at me and he says, "Sergeant Distel, I was looking at your file because I just got notice that you're receiving a medal." He says, "And I realized you never graduated high school." I said, "No, sir, I didn't." He says, "Monday morning, I've got you enrolled at Rudyard High School. You show up." That's how I graduated high school. I have since went on and achieved 3 masters. They're all in mechanical repair or mechanical operations. So this type of presentation is rather foreign to me, but I'll get through it quite well. My mechanical ability, thankfully, allowed me the opportunity when I wasn't on a mission. I kept our squadron consistently ready to be mobile. I flew many missions. One, I had to load 3 APCs, armored personnel carriers, and 3 tanks on a C-133. C-133 has 4 props. It's got 2 decks, bottom deck and a top deck. The APCs went on top, they were later. It was amazing because this thing takes off down the runway and it's barely moving. And you're going up to Khe Sanh area and you're just worried. The Vietnamese were pretty good shots, so. Anyway, I loaded those and I was chosen for that mission because not many Air Force guys could operate those contraptions and secure them, let alone unload them and keep the aircraft operational and not damaged. And I was chosen for that, and I got that done. I arrived in Vietnam 1 month after my 20th birthday on September 13th, 1970. It was a Friday. I wasn't even allowed to vote yet, and I'm in a war zone. Now, I have to inform you that I did not have to go overseas to Vietnam. I was given orders for deployment just before graduating the Tech School of Aircraft Loading Specialist. Several of us were ushered into a small room at the end of the day room, and orders were distributed to everyone. As we read them, our jaws dropped. You need to understand, all of us raised our right hand and took an oath to the United States. Just 4 months previously, we graduated from basic training and 6 weeks of tech school after just 20 weeks in the military, and we're going to Vietnam. We all sat there just looking at each other, and a captain came in front of us. You were a captain, weren't you?
I was. Not that captain.
And he said, "Did everyone read your orders?" All you saw was heads bobbing up and down. Then he asked, and I quote, "Is anyone the only son of an only son of a deceased veteran?" My father died in the polio epidemic in 1950, on October 6th. I was born August 8th, 1950. I was just shy of being 8 weeks old when he died. My grandfather served in World War II. My dad served in the Korean War. My dad was the only son of an only son. I was the only son of an only son of a deceased veteran. I fought with the captain's questions for what seemed like forever. I looked around the room, and no one raised their hand. I managed to put my personal feelings aside, and I did not raise my hand. I couldn't figure out why that made me eligible not to go with them. And I kept my mouth shut. I guess you would have had to be in that room to understand. As I mentioned earlier to you, that the National Vietnam Veterans Day is March 29th. This March 29th, I did not see one mention of it on the nightly news. I did not hear one politician of any type even acknowledge it. I was not very happy. It was just like when we came home. No one cared about us. And they still don't today. This coming September 13th will mark 55 years since I was fortunate enough to return home to the world from Vietnam and see loved ones that I had missed for 366 days. I should explain that those of us that served in that war referred to the United States as the world. No other place existed to us but the United States. I occasionally think about the days that I spent in that country as I think back to those days and the memories that they bring back, the remembrance of being scared, the feelings of sorrow, the sense of loneliness, and all the tears that flowed. During these times, as I showed the memories, some were welcomed, however, many were not. Imagine being just 19 or barely 20 and thrust into a combat zone where nightly incoming rockets took your sleep away. while preparing you for new memories every day. During the days, our missions were accomplished, and hopefully without encountering any enemy fire. Again, just out of high school, 9,000 miles from home, and wondering how in the hell you were going to make it through the day. Many Americans have limited knowledges of our sacrifices made by those who have served this great country in the so-called Vietnam conflict. The period from 1959 to 1975, and yes, I am that old. As a chaplain of the American Legion for the past 20 years, I've been asked, why does God allow bad things to happen, like fires, hurricanes, tornadoes, and wars? I tell them, God does not make war or other difficult situations. He does, however, guide us through them, which is why in trying times like those, we pray to Him for help. During the 16 years of the Vietnam War, the United States lost 58,479 brave men and women while serving in that country. That breaks down to 3,645 souls each year. 304 souls every month. 8 loved ones every day died for 16 years. You can check my math, but I'm right. If you look at any inside picture of Vietnam, you will notice very little vegetation. During the war, besides bombs and bullets, the United States used a powerful defoliant to kill the brush on perimeters and jungle trails so that the enemy could be seen easier. Unfortunately, more than 340,000 Vietnam veterans have died from Agent Orange. 340,000. Agent Orange got his name because whatever it touched turned that color. During World War II, the United States casualties amassed to 407,316. Dedicated souls encompassing 2 continents. Those killed in combat in Vietnam stood at 58,479. Agent Orange exposure added to that totals less than 9,000 of those killed in World War II that was fought on 2 continents. Vietnam, it's just less than 9,000 that was killed in all of World War II. Vietnam is just about the size, 2/3 the size of California. So the death total, which is still adding up today, from Vietnam was almost as many men as we lost in World War II in Europe and the Pacific region. During the 16 years of the United States occupation of Vietnam, 2.7 million military personnel served in that country. Today, there is less than 600,000 Vietnam veterans still alive. While we bravely served our country in that foreign land, we were unaware of the protests that were going on back home. We knew nothing of the music groups who were writing songs and singing anti-war songs encouraging the end of the Vietnam War. and asked that all warriors be brought home. While images were vivid on the nightly news, we, honorably serving the sailors, soldiers, airmen, and Marines, had no idea it was occurring. Of the 2.7 million that answered that call, our country's call, served honorably in the nation's most controversial war. These brave male and female came home and never got a thank you. We didn't get it from our government. We didn't get it from the American people. We got only protests and spit in our face, as we were not welcome back to the world that we loved and missed for what seemed like an eternity after a year of deadly daily situations. I remember vividly landing in San Francisco and going through customs inspection. Now, I passed the inspections without any concern. The custom agent asked me where I was headed, and I told her. Yes, she was the first female round eye I had seen in 366 days. Anyway, I said, I need to catch a flight from Chicago to Toledo. Her round eyes got a lot bigger. She flipped my duffel bag down off the table and said, you need to get to gate A63 and hurry. I'll have them hold the door. And then she got real quiet and said, but you need to go over there to the men's room first and change clothes. Need to change into civilian clothes. Otherwise, getting through the airport will be very difficult for you. Now, I faulted no one for the adversity that I encountered at that time. I was just damn glad to be almost home. As you have heard today, the good, the bad, and the ugly, this is why events like this one today are so profound. This is why events like this are talked about and are so important to those of us that served in that war, and should stir emotions in those who did not. As you're at the hardware store or at Kroger's, and you see someone wearing a Vietnam cap, they're not bragging. They just want recognition. They are probably not heroes, but they definitely sacrificed a portion of their life. They have nightmares of events and sacrifices, and they occasionally lonely because no one else knows that portion of their life. I did not include any of the tough times that I experienced in my talk today with all of you, but we do share difficult times when we get together. We share a few beers, and we talk with each other. We don't share the tough times with the public. That is our discipline. I'll leave you with a quote from nightly newscaster Walter Cronkite that he stated in 1971. Everybody remember Walter Cronkite? He quoted, "War itself is, of course, a form of madness. It is hardly a civilized pursuit. It's amazing how we can spend so much time and money in inventing ways to kill each other, and so little time and money on how to achieve peace that'll last forever. And then he signed off with, "Good night." I'd like to thank all of you for putting up with me today. God bless all of you for being here today, and God bless each and every person that gives of themselves in the sacrifice of their time for our country. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I have just a little time for questions or comments. Yes.
Again, I'd like to thank you and the other gentlemen for your service to the country. I have some Vietnam veteran friends, and there are some that have no desire ever to return to Vietnam. There's others that want to go back and visit to see what it's like now. I'm curious what you feel about that, or if you've been back, or what your situation is.
Well, you wouldn't believe this, but it's a beautiful country. It really is. Would I like to go back? Not for that 23-and-a-half-hour flight, no.
Thank you. Others? Dave?
Ron, I'll ask you the same question about that I asked to Jim. What else should this country be doing for veterans that is not doing now?
You know, we're fortunate, first of all, in Ohio, because every county in Ohio has a Veteran Service Commission. So if a veteran needs anything in Ohio, they don't have to go far. Michigan has 3 offices. Florida has 4. You know, we're fortunate, but for us that come home, well, this ain't the 70s, so I think it's gotten a lot better.
Thank you. Others? Questions, comments?
I appreciate your service in Vietnam. I had so many friends. I didn't have to go, thank God. But I talked to so many people. I have a friend that's on permanent disability from Agent Orange. I have a guy whose dad used to farm for us, and he was in one of those outposts with snipers shooting at him. He can't concentrate at all. He can't. All he can do is drive his dad's tractor. He just couldn't. I mean, he was a brilliant guy in school, and such a mental disability from that. So my heart goes out to you guys. When I was in 3rd grade, there was a kid that used to walk by. He was a senior in high school, and us little kids were out in the yard. He'd go, "Hello, men," And when I was a sophomore in high school, he was killed in Vietnam. He was a pilot. He was killed. So I didn't have to go. I could have. I was the last year for a college deferment. My lottery number was 71.
34.
34, just as bad, even worse. But I still remember being in college, and I just numbed my head with alcohol and pot, because I knew as soon as I graduated I was going to die in Vietnam. And thank God it ended. Well, the draft ended before right before I graduated. So I'm so thankful for that. But I did go to a couple war protests, but I was never protesting the people, because I knew so many of my friends were over there. I still hate war. And God bless you. I really do appreciate you.
I tell everybody when they say thank you for your service, I turn to them and I say, I'd do it again if I had to, but I don't want to. That's my response to them. I ended up exposed to Agent Orange. I did 402 missions over there, and I flew. So I carried it in bladders and in barrels and everything else. And after my second open heart surgery, they finally said, you were exposed to Agent Orange. I said, I've been telling you that for 20 years. You know, but yeah, that's what happens. But anyway, anything else?
I have one thought. I have two brother-in-laws that were in Vietnam, and both were exposed to Agent Orange. What I found out, what I sort of heard as I listened to people, is that the fact that you were exposed and perhaps eligible for VA disability is not well advertised. People don't know about it. And I heard that from, a fellow from Sandusky, where I go to the gym, and my sister really had to fight to get my brother-in-law on to disability. He got one check before he was deceased. So it's not very well. I don't think our government wants people to know about it. That's my thought.
Myself, I was denied disability 2 times before they finally said, yes, you're right, we put up with you long enough. But you have to, that's seems to be the government's standard. Keep pushing them away till they don't come back, But you just got to be persistent with them. And like I say, Ohio, we're very fortunate because we have an office in every county. I've been a Veteran Service Commissioner for 18 years. And one thing I do is go out and talk about the offices. I was talking to a cousin of mine down in Florida, and I was talking about her husband, how to get benefits and all that. But if you talk to anybody, any veteran, let them know we have an office right here in Ottawa County, right down off of 163, right in Oak Harbor. So.
Can I comment on that?
Absolutely.
Part of the issue isn't just that the message isn't being sent about the available services. Part of the problem is many of us don't want to admit we need the help.
That's true too.
It was 25 years before I bothered to try to get any help. And 2 knees, back surgery, a heart attack, and a variety of other issues. I'm pretty damn glad somebody finally convinced me that I earned it. I didn't want to admit it. So it's yes, the messaging needs to get better. We are blessed in Ohio throughout the state, but if you have a veteran in your sphere that's saying, I don't want to get any support, I'm not broke, gently encourage them that, nobody does this alone, that some help is out there. All you got to do is be willing to ask for it. And then be patient, because the process takes a while. But
Yes, it does.
My dad was a career Air Force officer who served in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. And he never spoke about any of those experiences. And you mentioned that you talk with other veterans.
We only talk to each other.
Yes, and that's your discipline. And why is that?
I think the way we were treated when we came home, we thought nobody cared. And it's just been recent that people are starting to care about the Vietnam veterans. When I got home, I went to join the VFW. I got thrown out. We don't want your kind in here. I mean, that's the way it started. And this, when I came home from Vietnam, I was still in the military, and I walked to the VFW right around the corner from my mom's house, and I actually got thrown out. So it kind of put a bad taste in our mouth to begin with, and you just try to, we know we can talk to each other.
do you ever see that phrase out there? It's a Jeep thing you wouldn't understand. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like that. It's hard enough to share, even with folks that had that shared experience. It's almost impossible to share it with folks that haven't walked the walk.
Others? One more. Anyone? Well, thank you, gentlemen, so much for your service
Thank you.
and for sharing with
Thank you
us your life. I pray God's blessings upon you and your family as you continue to walk this journey in life. I hope that you all will take advantage of seeing the traveling Vietnam Wall in front of Hotel Lakeside through this weekend, and may you have a blessed week. Bye-bye.
Nice job.